Why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
You might wonder why on a health and fitness channel we would talk about mental health, and it's because your body is not just the physical specimen, but there's other aspects of life. There's your spiritual, mental, so many other areas of life that make a big impact. If you haven't seen my video yet on achieving balance in your life, you should check that out. But let's talk about mental health, and one way to do that is to talk about mental illness. I find it interesting that when someone has a physical injury, you know, they break a bone and have a cast or get stitches or taking some sort of treatment for a disease or injury, people will give them some empathy and encourage them the best. It's just a normal part of life that we all experience. But when it comes to mental health, it's kind of this stigma there. It's almost taboo. We don't discuss it because it can be uncomfortable sometimes. There's a lot of misconceptions. You'll hear people sometimes insult people saying they're crazy or mad or loco or psycho.
Are you out of your mind? Okay. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
Sometimes people will say they need to get back on their meds as an insult. Now, obviously, our culture and Hollywood contributes to this misunderstanding. If you look at all the great movie villains over the years, so many of them fit this mental illness realm of this extreme version of people that have either multiple personalities they're struggling with, they don't have control over their thoughts, they might be a psychopath or a full-blown sociopath, but those obviously make better villains because they can't be reasoned with, they're not predictable. Let's talk about some of the most common mental disorders. And as I mentioned these, remember first there's a range, an extreme range here, from mild, just maybe a hint of these symptoms or how it impacts them, to severe debilitating. So all within here, someone might fall within that range. But first of all, it's depression. I think everyone has experienced the feelings of depression before. And I know I've never been diagnosed with depression, but I can tell you I'm sure I have seasonal depression because in the winter months from November to March, just yucky, blah feeling. I hate the cold, I hate the darkness, and that's something I haven't experienced the last 4 years since I've been in Ghana, having year-round summer. So, but depression's a big one for a lot of people. Anxiety is another one. People may have excessive fears or phobias of certain things happening in certain circumstances. Okay, another one is OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. I think as a little kid I might have had some of this because I remember tying my shoes sometimes 10, 15 times until it felt just perfect before I could stop doing it. I must have outgrown that though because I don't have that issue anymore. Obviously you can tell from the quality of my video production on this channel. Some other ones are bipolar disorder, where you've got these drastic mood swings. Also PTSD, panic attacks, things that might be caused from prior trauma. You might have certain triggers that set that off. Eating disorders and body dysmorphia are very common these days with a lot of people. Okay, then we can move to some of the more extreme examples. Schizophrenia, when you're paranoid and seeing things that aren't really there, getting hidden messages people are sending to you that don't really exist. One of my favorite movies is A Beautiful Mind. They do a great job of showing how this can be in an extreme case. My grandfather was actually institutionalized for some time for this, thinking that people were trying to kidnap his son, and when the meter guy came around to the house to check the meter, he beat him up. Then you've got the full-blown psychopath or sociopath, where they don't care about other people, they have no problem harming other people, no remorse. Anyway, so there's a range of these. Also, some that people might consider on here, learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD, autism, although there's a lot more nervous disorders. A lot of people confuse that though with it, as well as dementia and Alzheimer's, even though that's a brain disease. But it definitely can still impact one's mind. Everyone has suffered from some degree of this to some extent in their life. Some of the greatest minds and greatest achievers in the world throughout history have suffered from various mental illnesses. When we look at the causes of mental illness, there's quite a few of them. Obviously, there's a genetic predisposition that people have. Some might have a chemical imbalance. Others might have had, disease or traumatic brain trauma. There could be prolonged and excessive stresses in their life, or neglect or abuse, things like that. But there's lots of reasons and ways that people can get mental illness or make it worse. When we talk about the care of mental illness, I don't think we have a very good track record as we look throughout history on this. In the old days, people used to just be caged or put in a straitjacket or had shock therapy or lobotomies, things like that. I go into some detail and reference that in my video about when the experts got it wrong. If you haven't seen that, you should check it out. So let's talk about some of the treatments. First of all, a common one would be seeing a psychologist, having therapy where you're able to counsel and share your thoughts with someone. If you need medication, you'd see a psychiatrist. They can prescribe medication. Let me just make this quick disclaimer. I generally think that the medical community overprescribes and has a knee-jerk reaction just to write a prescription. However, I know people who have had their lives changed are able to feel better and function better because of meds they're taking for mental illness, and so I'm not judgmental in that regard, but even though I still think in general we're so quick to prescribe stuff, but that can be a life-changing thing for a lot of people and make a huge difference. Other things people can do is to improve their environment, remove those stressors and those triggers that will make it more difficult for them, learn behavior modification techniques. Stress management is an important one, to be able to control that in a healthy way. And then having a support system, people you can talk to, friends and family, that can make a big difference. When you're in isolation and you're keeping your thoughts and how you feel to yourself, that can be debilitating. In fact, that's why they call it solitary confinement. It's a punishment in prison when they keep you away from other people. And then there's some things that are just obvious no-brainers, not only to your mental health but your physical health. Things like being active, getting in exercise, moving your body helps you feel better, getting quality nutrition, getting good sleep, those sort of things. And then obviously avoiding stuff like harmful substances, drugs, alcohol, any sort of substance abuse that will make things worse. So one of the reasons I decided to make this video is because just today I ran into an acquaintance, and I know he suffers with mental illness. I'm not sure to what extent or what exactly, but he just kind of goes off on these random topics. I sometimes feel very uncomfortable when I'm talking to him, and I feel bad about that. But it reminded me that we need to not shun people who are suffering from mental illness in whatever degree or what it might be, and that we need to be more open-minded about that, and it's something that we should take care of instead of ignore. So I hope you can identify some of the steps, things you can do in your life to give yourself better mental health. A lot of these things, though, like I said before, they will spill over into not only your mental but your physical health, but it's all part of living a healthier, balanced life.